Mrs. Badenoch lived in a quiet corner of the city. A woman of modest means and many dreams, she raised her children the best way she knew how, with love in one hand and survival in the other. Life wasn't cruel to them, but it wasn't kind either. It simply existed. Bills came when they came, and food was stretched when it had to be. She had 3 children. Racheal was her first, 16, tall for her age, with tired eyes that had seen more than they should. Omarola came next, a year younger, lighter in spirit, quicker to laugh. And Daniel, the baby of the house, barely 10, with his shoes always dirty and his voice always echoing in the compound. But it was Racheal who carried the house on her back. Each day began before dawn for her. She'd sweep the corridor, fetch water, make breakfast, wash clothes, then rush to the roadside kiosk to help her mother sell vegetables before school. After school, she'd return not to rest, but to cook, tidy the house, tutor Daniel with his homework, if he even sat still long enough, then lay her head to sleep only when the others already snored. She never complained at first. She thought it was just what eldest daughters do. But slowly, resentment began to crawl beneath her skin. Resentment for the way her siblings laughed and ran outside without a care. For how Omarola could spend 2 hours in front of a mirror doing nothing but smiling at herself. For how Daniel always came back muddy, having wrestled in gutters or climbed mango trees with boys from the next street. She watched them play, and something inside her cracked. One Saturday evening, Racheal stood over a pile of dirty dishes, hands soaked and back aching. She looked out the window and saw Omarola giggling under the mango tree with her friends. Daniel was tossing stones into the gutter for fun. The sight broke her. She banged the cup down harder than necessary, then stormed out. "Do you both ever think about me?" she shouted, her voice trembling with a kind of tired anger. "I do everything in this house while you two run around like you don't live here." Omarola blinked, surprised. "But you always do it. You don't ask for help." "I shouldn't have to ask." Racheal fired back, tears forming fast. "This is our house, not my punishment." Before more words could be said, Mrs. Badenoch stepped out from the back room. She'd heard everything. "Racheal," she snapped, "what's all this shouting for? Are you the only one with siblings? Must you always nag them?" Racheal turned to her mother, shocked. "Mummy, I'm just saying it's not fair. I'm tired." Her mother's tone didn't soften. "You're the eldest. They're still children. Don't start behaving like a bitter woman." That stung. Bitter? Was that what she was becoming? She turned away slowly, feeling the burn of tears that had been waiting months to fall. Inside, something shifted. Not loudly, just a quiet snapping of a girl who was slowly disappearing behind chores, expectations, and silence. That night, she didn't speak at dinner, and no one noticed. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone ever saw her, not as a helper, not as a second mother, not as the eldest, but as Racheal, a 16-year-old girl who just wanted someone to say, "You've done enough today. Rest." But no one said it. Not yet. As the years passed, the weight on Racheal's shoulders only grew heavier, not with age, but with expectations. Mrs. Badenoch had a way of asking that didn't sound like a request. It sounded like guilt wrapped in tears. Every school term brought the same storm. Fees were due, money was tight, and Racheal, always Racheal, was the one told to stay home. "Just this term," her mother would whisper, tears already sitting in her eyes before Racheal could even answer. "You know things are hard. You know Omarola has to write an important exam, and Daniel, he's still a boy." The first time, Racheal nodded, lips trembling, and folded her uniform neatly into the bottom drawer. The second time, she paused but agreed. By the third time, she didn't even ask when she'd be allowed back. She just stopped bringing it up. It wasn't just school. Clothes came and went in the house. Shiny ones, lacy ones, market fresh ones. Every time Mrs. Badenoch returned from the market with nylon bags, Daniel would bounce excitedly and Omarola would pose in the mirror. Racheal would sit and wait, a small hope fluttering in her chest. But when her mother handed out the clothes, there would be nothing for her. "Racheal, you understand," her mother would say again, voice shaking. You're the eldest. You're already grown. You know how it is. And then came the tears. Always the tears. Not Racheal's. Her mother's. A soft crying that was never loud, but loud enough to wrap around Racheal's throat like a rope. Her mother would cry and say things like, "I didn't plan life this way. My daughter, if your father had stayed at home, he will only show up once in a blue moon. If life had been different, but you, Racheal, you're strong. You must help me carry this family." And just like that, any protest Racheal might have had would die in her chest. How do you argue with tears from the woman who raised you? How do you fight back when you're told that suffering is a sign of strength and silence is the proof of love? So she stopped asking. She stopped expecting. The day Mr. Badenoch came home started like any other. He arrived just before noon, his presence filling the house before he even stepped through the door. A tall, dark, and broad-shouldered man. His voice echoed to the compound like thunder, and his shadow seemed to stretch across every corner of the house. He was home. He came back once a month from the city, where he worked in another state. Every visit was the same: a loud arrival, a brief stay, and then silence for another 4 weeks. That Saturday, Mrs. Badenoch had a party to attend, a church member's birthday. It was important, she said. Only for a few hours, she assured, adjusting her gelly in the mirror. Racheal was washing dishes at the sink when her mother stepped out in her best outfit. She didn't say goodbye. She never really did. And so, the house fell quiet. Too quiet. Racheal was in her room when she heard the knock. Light, soft, unusual. She turned, heart suddenly uneasy. Her father stood at the door, leaning on the frame, watching her. "Come and talk to me," he said, his voice low. "I've missed you." But something about the way he said it didn't sound right. She didn't move, her feet rooted to the ground. When he stepped into the room, she felt every inch of the space shrink around her. What followed wasn't conversation. It wasn't love. It wasn't fatherhood. It was something else. Something cruel. Something that left her chest shaking and her eyes swollen. She cried in silence long after he left the room. Her door remained shut, but the damage was already done. She didn't know how long she sat there, curled in a ball on the edge of her bed, knees drawn to her chest, eyes leaking slowly like a tap that wouldn't close. She felt used, betrayed, broken, not because she didn't know evil existed, but because she never expected it to come from the one man who was meant to protect her. Later that evening, Mrs. Badenoch returned, humming as she kicked off her shoes. Racheal didn't come out to greet her. Not immediately, but when she did, it was with a face full of tears and a voice barely loud enough to speak. "Mummy," she whispered. "Daddy, he touched me." The room went still. Mrs. Badenoch froze. Then, just like always, the tears came, but not the kind Racheal needed. Mrs. Badenoch held her head and began to cry for herself. What will people say? Racheal, no, this is your father. You want to disgrace this family? You want me to die of shame? Racheal watched her in disbelief. Was this happening again? Even now? Please, her mother said, reaching out, falling to her knees. "I'm begging you. Don't tell anyone. Don't destroy this family. You're the strong one, remember? You always have been. You're the firstborn. Cover us. Help us survive this." And just like that, the script was flipped. The pain shifted back to Racheal. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about them. "I'll take you to the hospital," Mrs. Badenoch whispered. "I'll make sure you're fine. But promise me you won't say a word. Promise me you'll protect your siblings. Protect your father's name." Racheal stood frozen, every muscle in her body screaming to run. But she looked at her mother, the same woman who cried her into silence 100 times before, and she nodded. She promised. She shouldn't have, but she did. The next morning, Mrs. Badenoch took her quietly to a clinic 2 streets away. No questions were asked. No names were written down that mattered. Just a quiet doctor, a soft examination, and pain Racheal would carry for years. No one else knew, not even her siblings. And when they asked why Racheal suddenly stopped talking, why her eyes looked different, why her laughter died, Mrs. Badenoch told them, "She's just tired. You know Racheal. She always carries too much." They didn't know the half of it. Racheal was now 23. Not that it felt like it. Time had passed her by like a bus she was never allowed aboard. While others her age were posting graduation pictures and going for NYSC, Racheal was still home, sweeping the same floors, stirring the same pot of stew, folding other people's clothes. She lived like a shadow in her own life. No tertiary education, no training. Racheal had always carried burdens, but this time, her body could no longer hold the weight. It started with the nausea, then came the fatigue, the quiet groans in the morning, the silent tears at night. She had become a stranger in her own skin, tired, dizzy, and afraid. She never said a word. She didn't have to. Her silence had become fluent. Mrs. Badenoch noticed. She thought it was malaria at first. She called a local nurse, a kind woman with gentle hands and sharp eyes. The nurse asked Racheal a few questions, checked her pulse, pressed gently on her abdomen, and then paused. The silence said everything. "She's pregnant," the nurse finally whispered. The room fell into a hush. Not even the ticking wall clock dared to make a sound. After the nurse left, Mrs. Badenoch sat on the edge of the bed, her voice barely holding steady. "Racheal, who did this to you?" And Racheal broke. Tears came pouring out as if every year of silence had been saving up for this very moment. She held her stomach and sobbed. "It's him, Mum, it's him. It's Daddy." Her mother's breath caught. "He touches me. Every time you leave. I'm just a toy in his hands. A thing he uses." Over and over. She wiped her nose with her wrapper, gasping between every word. "You knew, didn't you? You always knew. You just kept saying, 'Hold a family together.' You made me cover your shame. But I was the one bleeding inside." Mrs. Badenoch broke down in tears too, loud, trembling sobs. But Racheal wasn't moved by them anymore. She had seen too many of those tears used as weapons. This time, they had no power. The next morning, Mrs. Badenoch took her quietly to a hospital in the next town. No explanation was given. No comfort was offered. The procedure was done like a dirty secret being erased. As they returned home in silence, Mrs. Badenoch finally spoke. "You must never speak of this again, Racheal. If people hear this, if the neighbors find out, no man will ever marry you." Racheal turned her head slowly, her face empty, her voice hollow. "I'm not even allowed to keep my own pain, am I?" No answer came, just the sound of their footsteps on the dusty road, and the heavy silence of another secret buried, but not gone. It had been months since the hospital visit. Racheal, though not healed in full, was beginning to breathe again. Her steps were slow, her voice still soft, but she was waking up, little by little, from the life that numbed her. One calm afternoon, she sat outside the house, wrapped in a simple shawl, her feet resting lightly on the sand. The sun warmed her skin as she watched chickens peck the ground and children play far down the road. Then, a sleek, black car rolled past. It didn't belong there, not in this part of the street. It moved slow, almost like it was searching, and just as it reached her gate, it paused. The tinted window slid down, and a face she hadn't seen in nearly 15 years appeared behind the glass. The door opened. "Racheal?" She blinked. "Hassan." The man who stepped out was nothing like the skinny boy she had shared pencils and plantain chips with in primary 4. Now, he wore a crisp kaftan, gold wristwatch, and that quiet confidence that comes with success. He smiled broad and genuine. "Aha, you just disappeared. We didn't see you again after primary 4. What happened?" Racheal smiled faintly, a little unsure of how to answer. Long story. "Things happened," she said, voice low. "Let's not go there." He didn't push. He just nodded slowly. "Okay," he said gently, "but I'm glad I saw you today." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number?" And just like that, a new thread was tied. From that day, they spoke. Not every day, but often. His voice became a small light in her dark room. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they just talked about nothing. But it felt safe. She began to smile again, not with her lips, but with her eyes, until the day her mother noticed. "Who's always calling you these days?" Mrs. Badenoch asked, peeking from the doorway. "It's Hassan," Racheal replied. "Hassan?" she repeated, pausing. "Is it that Hassan, the son of Al-Hajj Tyrat?" "Yes." Mrs. Badenoch scoffed and adjusted her wrapper. "I know that family. His mother is my friend. They are stinkingly rich, yes, but their name is not clean in this neighborhood. Don't lose your head, Racheal. In case you're falling in love, let me just tell you now, you can't marry him. Don't worry, I know what to do." Racheal's heart sank a little. She had expected it, but still it hurt. Another door, possibly closing. But this time, she wasn't sure she would let it slam. For weeks, Racheal's room had begun to feel different. Not heavy, not cold, just hopeful. Each time her phone buzzed with Hassan's name, her face would soften, like something inside her was slowly thawing. Their chats weren't always deep, but they were kind. And kind was something Racheal hadn't known in a long, long time, until the buzzing stopped. It started subtly, a missed call here, a delayed response there. Then one day, nothing. No more messages. No more "how are you doing?" No more warmth. Just silence. At first, Racheal thought it was network. Then maybe he was busy. But when 2 days became 4 and 4 became a week, the fear began to claw inside her chest. She called once. No answer. She waited a day. She called again. Still no answer. Then again. And again. Nothing. Her smile, the one she had just begun to rediscover, faded without a fight. Her mind, once blossoming again, now started to shrink back into itself. She sat at the foot of her bed and whispered, "What did I do?" I didn't offend him. I was always careful. She stared at her phone for hours that night, hoping, praying, willing it to ring. It never did. Just when the emptiness had started to settle again, Omarola burst into the house with her usual glow. "Sis, I have news." Racheal sat up slightly. "What's that?" "I'm bringing my fiancé home tomorrow. I want you all to meet him." Racheal smiled genuinely, happy for her sister. If not me, then at least her. She deserves to be loved. The next day, the entire house buzzed. Mrs. Badenoch was in high spirits, singing, tying her best wrapper, instructing everyone like it was Christmas. Racheal helped in the kitchen, doing what she always did, the work behind the scenes. Then came the knock at the gate. When the door opened and Racheal looked up, her world stopped. It was him, Hassan, dressed neatly, smiling. Hassan, the same man who asked for her number, the same man who made her feel seen for the first time in years. Now standing in her house as her sister's fiancé, her body didn't move. Only her heartbeat did, loudly, painfully. Her mother flew into the sitting room, laughing, hugging Hassan, calling him son-in-law. She set food before him like he was royalty. Racheal felt her throat dry up. She turned and walked to her room. Minutes later, she called for Omarola. "Sis," Racheal said softly, "what's going on?" Omarola looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "Hassan, you knew we were talking. You knew how I felt. How could you?" Omarola scoffed. "Oh, please," she said, folding her arms. "Talking? You think that meant something?" Racheal blinked. "I don't understand. Why do you think an educated, rich, handsome man like Hassan would marry you?" Omarola snapped. "Go and find someone like you, an illiterate, jobless village girl." Then she walked out. No apology. No remorse. Racheal stood still. Her hands trembled. Her knees weakened. The next day, after Hassan left, she walked up to her mother, who was busy folding wrappers in the living room. "You knew," Racheal said quietly. Her mother looked up, startled. "You knew about Hassan. You knew he stopped calling. And you did nothing." Mrs. Badenoch didn't answer at first. Then the tears started, her signature. "Racheal, what did you want me to do?" she sobbed. "Omarola is your sister. She has a bright future. She's educated. She's in the university." Racheal's face cracked. "And I'm not." Her mother held her wrap at her eyes. Your own will come, and just let her be. Don't ruin her moment. Your time will come. But Racheal didn't believe her. She just stood there, tears rolling down her cheeks. Because deep inside, she knew, in that house, her time never came. And maybe it never would. That night, Racheal lay on her bed with her face buried in the pillow. Her chest rose and fell with each sob as the weight of everything came crashing down again. Her fingers gripped the bedsheet like it could somehow hold her together. How could a mother be this wicked? She whispered into the darkness. What did I ever do wrong? Tears poured freely down her cheeks. Why is my life like this? Why does love skip past me like I'm not here? Maybe I was never meant to be loved. Maybe I was born just to survive. Alone. She cried until her voice faded into the night, and sleep took her with trembling breath. A few days later, the clanking of pots and footsteps in the compound returned life to the house. Mrs. Badenoch's childhood friend, Mama Raleigh, had come to visit. The women exchanged greetings and laughter over groundnuts and Gary, but their words carried weight. Inside the kitchen, Racheal paused mid-step when she heard Mama Raleigh say, "And there's one man beside my house. Akintund is his name. He's a shoe cobbler. Not much, but he's decent. He's been looking for a wife. As I day think am, now Racheal face just entered my mind." Mrs. Badenoch didn't even hesitate. "Ah, that's very good. In fact, there's no need to delay. She's not getting any younger. Let's not waste time. Bring him tomorrow." Racheal froze. Her hands began to shake. Then her mother added, with a tone soaked in dismissal, "After all, it's not like an educated man will come and marry her. We all know her condition." That last sentence hit like a slap. Racheal slowly backed out of the hallway, her legs weak. She entered her room and shut the door gently, then leaned her back against it. Her knees gave way. She sank to the floor and cried, not out of surprise, but out of confirmation. So this is what I am to her? A thing to give away? Something to discard when it no longer fits into her picture of success? She can't wait to get rid of me, Racheal whispered. After arranging Hassan for Omarola, now she's pairing me with a cobbler. Just like that. Like I'm some leftover food. She stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then something in her heart hardened, not out of hate, but out of survival. Maybe this is my only chance to escape this prison, she thought. Let her bring the man. I'll smile. I'll nod. I'll pretend. And the moment I find my breath again, I will run. She wiped her tears. She wasn't free yet, but for the first time, she had a plan. The next day came like any other, hot, dry, and painfully ordinary, until he arrived. Akintund. He walked in with quiet steps and a soft smile. Fair-skinned, with kind eyes and a shirt too clean for a cobbler. Racheal had imagined someone rough, impatient, someone that looked like the life she had been trying to run from. But this man looked gentle. Mrs. Badenoch could barely hide her glee. She rushed to welcome him, her laughter echoing through the compound as she set down 2 plastic chairs under the mango tree. "My son," she said, clapping her hand excitedly. "We won't waste time. Oh, come and marry her within a month. She's ripe and ready." Akintund laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "If she agrees, I'll come." "I won't delay," he replied softly. Eventually, they left him and Racheal alone. She sat on the edge of the bench, arms folded, her face blank but curious. He spoke first. His voice was quiet, unhurried. "I know I'm not rich. I make shoes, yes, but I won't lie to you." She didn't say a word. "I don't have a car. I don't live in a mansion. But what I have, I will share. I will give you peace, Racheal, and joy, even if it's small joy." She looked at him for the first time, and in that moment, something inside her didn't melt, but it paused. They exchanged numbers. She didn't expect much. But that night, her phone rang. It was him. "Have you eaten?" he asked. She blinked. "Yes." "Did you smile today?" he said. She laughed quietly for the first time in a long time. From that day on, Akintund called every day. He didn't ask for much, just to know how her day went. He cracked dry jokes that somehow made her smile. He talked about the shoes he made and the people he met. And most evenings he would show up again, not to demand, not to rush, just to sit with her outside on the bench as the sun faded. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't. But the silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. And for Racheal, that was new. Racheal was just returning from a quick errand her mother sent her on. 3rd Street wasn't far, just a walk past a market bend. She walked briskly, her thoughts still lingering on the late-night calls of the Kinton, and how soft his voice made her feel less alone. But midway, she paused. "Ah, my phone," she gasped. She had left it charging by her bed. She turned around immediately, hurrying back home. The compound was quiet, save for birds chirping and distant voices of neighbors. As she got to the door, just about to knock, she heard laughter, not the joyful kind. The kind that sounds like secrets, like mischief, like something that should never be overheard. Then came her mother's voice. "Racheal, I swear, this girl is a thorn in my neck. Since day one." Racheal froze. Her knuckles hovered over the wooden door, trembling. "You remember back then in the general hospital, when we were nurses?" "Ah." Mama Racheal's voice rang. "How can I forget? We sold babies like Puff Puff." They burst into laughter. Ugly, loud, unforgiving. Racheal's heartbeat became thunder in her chest. I can't even count how many babies I sold, oh." Mrs. Badenoch said proudly. "Even you, Mama Racheal, you were the queen of selling. See, I used to lie to their mothers. Your baby died. Meanwhile, the baby day in my nylon bag for back door." Another roar of laughter. Racheal's fingers slowly left the door. She took a silent step back. Then came the words that shattered her soul. "You know, Racheal's mother had twins? Identical girls. I took one to sell to Chief Claudius. And that same Chief Day dry black Benz. Yes, now. The chief backed out last minute. I was so angry. That money would have changed my life. You should have sold her to someone else. My useless husband insisted we keep her. I just wanted to throw her away." They laughed again. "Do you know I still see Racheal's mother in Mammy Market?" Mrs. Badenoch added with a wicked chuckle. "She sells corn near the police station. She doesn't recognize me. But I know her. They used to call her Mama Diola. And Racheal looks just like her twin sister. Identical. Same eyes. Same sad smile. I pity that woman. But what can I do? I can't tell her. I go to jail." Silence. Only wind now. Racheal stood at the door, her whole world unraveling one word at a time. Her mother wasn't her mother. She had a twin sister. She never knew. Her real mother was selling corn, probably thinking her baby died. And the woman she called Mom was the reason for it all. She swallowed her scream. Her hand shook violently, but she didn't knock. She walked away, alone, shattered, and suddenly she didn't know who she was anymore. By the time Racheal returned from the errand, her world felt heavier than it ever had. She said nothing when she walked through the door, not even when Mrs. Badenoch looked her up and down with the usual coldness. She simply nodded quietly, but her heart had already made a decision. Later that evening, the moment her mother stepped out of the house to visit a neighbor, Racheal picked up her phone with shaky fingers and dialed a Kinton. "Please, I need to see you. It's urgent." A Kinton's voice, ever calm, didn't hesitate. "Send me your house location. I'll send you an address. 4th Street, just 2 blocks away. There's a small kiosk there. Meet me?" Racheal nodded even though he couldn't see her. She quickly stepped out before Mrs. Badenoch could return. "Mummy, I want to check the electrician about the wire in the sitting room," she shouted back into the house, pretending to be in a rush. She didn't wait for a response. She ran. She ran like her past was on fire. A Kinton was already waiting when she arrived, dressed in a new shirt, his brows furrowed with concern. She sat beside him on the bench behind the small kiosk, and she told him everything, word for word. Her mother wasn't her mother. She was meant to be sold. She had a twin sister. Her real mother was alive and selling corn in Mammy Market. Akinton didn't interrupt. He didn't flinch. When she was done, he slowly stood up, walked into the kiosk, and returned with a pen and a piece of paper. "Racheal," he said softly, "tell me again everything she said about your real mother, every single detail." She repeated. "She said my real mother sells corn in front of the police station inside Mammy Market. People used to call her Mama Diola. She has no idea I'm her child. She's dark-skinned. I think she still wears wrappers. They say I look just like my twin sister." Akinton scribbled everything down, nodded, and without a word, changed his shirt behind the kiosk. "Let's go." The road to Mammy Market felt longer than usual. Racheal's palms were sweaty. Her heart raced with each step. What if she's not there? What if I can't even recognize her? What if this is all a terrible mistake? But Akinton walked beside her like a pillar, unshaken, steady. They got to the market, weaving through fruit stalls, fabrics, noise, and smoke. Then they saw her, there, right in front of the police post, beside a wheelbarrow stacked with roasted corn, a woman in a faded wrapper, her smile tired but kind, her eyes familiar. "Good evening," Akinton greeted softly. "Evening, my Pekin," the woman replied cheerfully. Racheal didn't speak. She just stared, because even before the woman said her name, she knew. The moment Mama Diola looked up and saw Racheal, her face lit up. She smiled wide, pointed at her, and chuckled playfully. "Ah, asterisk Diola, when did you change your hair? And this cloth as if is it your birthday?" Racheal took a slow breath. Her voice was steady but trembling. I'm not Diola. My name is Racheal." Mama Diola's smile froze. Her eyes scanned the girl again, and her hand flew to her chest. "Racheal," she whispered. Suddenly, her knees gave out. She grabbed Racheal's arms like they were life itself and screamed from the bottom of her soul. "This is my baby. This is my baby they stole from me. I won't let you go again. I won't let you go." The market came to a standstill. Corn fell from trays. Voices hushed. Heads turned. Within seconds, a crowd formed around the scene. Women gasped. Men shook their heads in disbelief. Someone ran toward the police post. Inside the police station, Racheal gave a full statement. She told them everything she heard behind the door. How Mrs. Badenoch confessed to selling babies at the hospital. How she admitted Racheal wasn't hers. How she nearly sold her to Chief Claudius. How she knew Mama Diola from Mammy Market, but never said a word. Akinton confirmed everything. Even the notes he wrote were handed over. The officers didn't waste a second. That same night, a team moved swiftly to arrest Mrs. Badenoch at home. She was stunned, speechless. Racheal, for her safety, was kept at the station under protective custody. By the next day, arrangements were made for a DNA test. Mama Diola couldn't sleep. She sat in the corridor of the police station all night, holding on to Racheal's scarf like it was sacred. The day after the results came in, positive, Mama Diola was Racheal's biological mother. Tears flooded the room. She cried. Racheal cried. Even the officer who handed over the results looked away to hide his emotion. By evening, Mrs. Badenoch was charged to court. The world Racheal had known had flipped, but for the first time, she wasn't lost anymore. She had found the truth. She had found her mother. And this time, no one could steal her again. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as the judge read the final sentence. Mrs. Badenoch was found guilty on all counts: child trafficking, falsifying hospital records, and years of abuse hidden under a mother's disguise. She was sentenced to 21 years in prison, without the possibility of parole. The woman who once stood proud in her compound now stood defeated in chains. Meanwhile, across town, another store was brewing. Hassan, the man everyone believed was just a businessman, had his own secrets unravel. He wasn't just rich, he was dangerous. Investigators trace him to an international cocaine trafficking ring spanning multiple countries, with front operations disguised as import-export companies. His arrest shocked everyone. The same quiet man who once offered mentorship to young boys in the neighborhood was now in federal custody. He was sentenced separately in a closed court due to the scale of the crime. Daniel? No one could find him. Some whispered he fled the country. Others said he never really existed, just a ghost in someone else's plan. A new life begins. With truth laid bare and justice served, Racheal moved in with Mama Diola, her real mother. The days were simple. Corn roasting on fire, laughter echoing, healing happening. And through it all, a Kinton never left her side. One afternoon, a sleek black luxury car pulled up in front of the compound. A Kinton stepped out, dressed sharp and glowing with quiet confidence. "Let's take a ride," he said, holding the car door open for her. Racheal stared at the car. "Whose car is this?" He just smiled. "I'll explain soon." They drove in silence until the road opened to a quiet estate on a hill. A mansion with arched windows, fountains, and beauty Racheal had only seen in dreams. She hesitated. "A Kinton, is this a hotel?" He chuckled. "No, this is my family house. My father owns it." She turned to him, confused. "Then why were you living simply? Why didn't you ever tell me?" He looked at her gently. "Because I needed to know who I was outside my father's shadow. He wanted me to run the company. I wanted to find my own path. So I left home and I met you. You changed me, Racheal. And now I want to change your world." She smiled, a quiet, peaceful smile. "I've come a long way." He touched her hand. "And it's just the beginning." Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment.